Earlier, I spoke with Israeli Defense Forces International spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus on the IDF's imminent ground operation into Gaza. Have a listen. Hi, Lieutenant Colonel Conricus. Pleasure to welcome you back to our program. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
What does it, at this moment tonight, the next stage of this war look like?
The next stage will likely be intense or intensified military operations in various parts of the Gaza Strip, focusing on the center of gravity of Hamas, which is in Gaza City. We have now called more than 50 hours ago, actually more than that, almost 72 hours ago, on Gazan civilians to vacate the area for the sake of their own safety. More than 600,000 have done so, and we are encouraging the others to follow for their own safety and not to be used by Hamas as their human shields. And we are preparing for the next stage of operations.
The New York Times over the weekend reported that the IDF or the Israel is looking to, quote unquote, take Gaza City. Can you confirm that?
Well, we're not looking into real estate or property. We're looking to achieve a military objective, and that is to totally dismantle Hamas and its military capabilities. The reason is, of course, we cannot allow a reality to continue, which led to the fact that Hamas was able to launch this terribly horrible strike that they did, which led to the more than 1,000 Israeli civilians being killed and 300 military personnel being killed and more than 3,000 wounded. So the aim here is to change that reality. And in order to do so, we are striking Hamas. They need to be removed from the equation. And it's not about real estate and it's not about taking a city. It's about going after the center of gravity of our enemy and finding them, flushing them out, and dismantling them.
In the IDF's estimation, how extensive is Hamas's footprint in Gaza?
It is massive and very influential, and it will be a tactical challenge, significant tactical challenge for the IDF, because Hamas has, over many years, directed a large part of the civilian resources in Gaza. Instead of building homes, roads, hospitals, schools, etc., they've taken cement and construction material and in fact built an entire tunnel system under Gaza. So imagine that there's the Gaza above ground, and then there's what really matters, Gaza below ground, where Hamas are taking refuge, hiding, and where they plan to fight from. And this is what we are aware of. We are also aware of the fact that we're dealing with a shrewd, ruthless, and very brutal enemy, and we are prepared to act with the relevant level of force that will be needed in order to beat them. And we understand that this won't be a quick fix. This will be a long and enduring military operation. At the end, in Israel, the Middle East in general, and in Gaza will be much better.
From a tactical perspective, when you talk about, for example, that underground network of tunnels, how much of that lengthy battle, as you describe it, do you anticipate will have to be fought at that level?
As little as possible.
Why do you say that?
Because it is the cumulative experience of all militaries that fight terrorists or insurgents and guerrillas all over the world, from Vietnam to Afghanistan to Iraq and other locations. Fighting underground is extremely challenging, and most of the advantages that we can bring to bear above ground are not possible underground. And it is an environment that suits the terrorist or the jihadi or the guerrilla fighter much more, and therefore we understand that Hamas will try to keep the fighting there. Our plan is to get them out and to kill them above ground.
Today, the IDF confirmed there are 199 hostages. The number of people we had been speaking about prior to this was around 150. What new information was the IDF able to ascertain to come to that number? And do you believe that those hostages are being held in Gaza?
So there is a national level task force in Israel that is pooling all the intelligence collection and analysis resources that the state of Israel has, not only the IDF. And what they're doing is focusing on every tiny bit of information that they can find and analyze in order to complete that puzzle of those many Israelis that are being held hostage. Over the last days, we've conducted various activities on the ground and, of course, intelligence activities that has led those researchers and senior intelligence officials to be able to establish a better picture and, most importantly, notify families of what we believe is the situation with their loved ones.
Lieutenant Colonel, you also mentioned the 600,000 Gazans who have moved from Gaza City southward. There are reports that amid discussions to open up the border at Rafah, there have been Israeli strikes. I just read reports, so I want to ask you point blank. Can you confirm, has the IDF struck the Rafah border in the last 24 hours as those discussions continue?
I've heard reports. We're looking into it. I am not aware of any such strike. And all of the information coming out of the Gaza Strip, I think, should be handled with extreme caution and suspicion because it is dominated by Hamas. They're applying a lot of violence and suppression on whoever sends information out of the Gaza Strip. And I'll give you an example. UNRWA, the UN agency that provides sustenance and schooling for about 1 million Gazans they issued a brief tweet which said that Hamas officials took food and fuel from a UNRWA facility which was intended for civilians. They deleted that tweet quickly after because they were dealt with by Hamas and it was an inconvenient piece of information that was spread. So any piece of information coming out of Gaza must be treated with suspicion because it can be fake or misinformation by Hamas intended for their propaganda warfare against Israel.
And I certainly take that point, Lieutenant Colonel. That's why I wanted to ask you very directly if, in fact, you did have any knowledge of that strike. And while you can't confirm or that specific report, I'm wondering if you could speak more broadly. Is the IDF okay with the idea of that border opening up if it does mean getting aid to Gazans who have moved now to the south? And doesn't it indeed, if that were to be the case, doesn't that indeed help, if not anything, Israel's cause?
Yeah, 2 days ago, we were coordinating part of a humanitarian extraction of Americans and internationals from Gaza through Rafah to Egypt. It was okay with the Egyptians, okay with us, and obviously the Americans wanted. I think there were Canadians there as well, but it didn't happen because Hamas didn't open the gate. I don't know why, but they didn't open the gate. That's, by the way, the same type of behavior that Hamas has displayed in northern Gaza. They're actively stopping Palestinians from evacuating south. They don't want Palestinians to go south because they want them to remain in a live combat zone in northern Gaza because they want to use them as their human shields, which I think is despicable, should be condemned by anybody who claims to be a humanitarian or belongs to a humanitarian so-called organization, UN, World Health, and many of the others, human rights, etc. They should be condemning Hamas for their despicable, vile use of civilians as human shields.
And once again, I would not take away from that point at all. I just want to be clear on the IDF's position. You're okay with that portion of the border being open if it does mean getting aid in and getting foreign nationals out?
Yeah, of course. Foreign nationals have little to do with what's happening in Gaza. And I think that we showed that when there was something concrete, the safe removal of civilians out of the Gaza Strip, internationals, we were for it. I can't say categorically that just open the floodgates and let everybody out, because of course that could have repercussions when it comes to our hostages. That could be used by Hamas to smuggle them out, for instance. So it's a complicated situation.
Lieutenant Colonel Conricus, I have to leave it there. I'm out of time. I appreciate your time.